we just go live on Twitch?
Hello, everyone, and welcome in. My name is Bryce Koon. It is Crowded Booth. It is college football season as we get ready. Talking season is just about over. Fall camp starts this week, and we're pumped to come with you each and every single week, talk a little college football with you. Tonight, SEC preview and predictions. It's going to be a fun one. It's going to be a lot of fun as we kind of talk about the most surprising team, the most disappointing team in the conference. And then we're going to give you our championship game matchup prediction and who is going to hold the crown up there in Mercedes-Benz in Atlanta. Will Manis and Ralph Larry joining me shortly on tonight's episode of The Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.
All right, welcome in, everybody, to another episode of The Crowded Booth. You see Joe the Pilot already in the comments section. We appreciate him watching as we get ready to talk about who wins the SEC, who's going to be a major player in the conference, and who's going to surprise, who's going to disappoint. And Will, we could just let you talk for about 20 minutes on a team that you think is going to just be ultimately disappointing this season. But we'd like to have fun and enjoy ourselves. So you can talk about them if you choose, but college football season's just about here, fellas. I think every single one of our teams opens up fall camp across the country. They do this week. So what's the anticipation level, Will, as we get ready for another season, 2025? We've been talking all off season long, man, and now we're going to have position battles. You're going to see some clips from practice where it kind of matters, and for each of our teams. And I think we're all ready to talk about something different.
Yeah, tired of the hypotheticals. I mean, let's get down to it. Let's put some things in stone and figure out who's going to be where. I'm still trying to figure out who's on what roster. And here we're starting fall camp, and I don't know who's playing for who.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, it's and if you're North Carolina over in the ACC, you're fans of them. You still don't know who is going to play because it's interesting. David with already just a bold take there. Texas versus Tennessee in Atlanta, he says. And that's interesting. Ralph, this time of the year, man, we've already gone through all the media days over the past 2 weeks. What's your what's your level of anticipation to finally watch some meaningful stuff on? We had the CFL on, I think, this past weekend, but this is actual
no one watches that.
fun stuff.
Let's be honest here,
dude. It was great.
I've been watching highlights from the last 3 seasons on YouTube every morning before I go to work, just because it's the only way to get me excited. I was talking about my friends and I on Friday. We're doing while we were working, we were talking about building a college football roster to beat some of the best teams in history. And we did it for about 4 hours on Friday, just building rosters of certain eras. And I was like, this is probably, I was just getting excited for football. And I really am, because we're closing talking season. It's this about time where we're like, okay, now we see what everybody's about. Some teams who have quarterback battles, we get to see what finally happens between those battles and what goes into the fall season. And I'm excited because I'm tired of hearing everyone talk about their teams because it's all just rumors.
Conjecture.
That's kind of impressive that you don't have to go further back than 3 years. I'm having to go back like 20 years to get excited.
Well, Will, there's a problem with that because, Ralph's team 3 years ago, just the darling, Cinderella of college football. Your team 3 years ago was we don't have to talk about. It was
barely was a team.
I mean, I was watching Carlton Marshall highlights the other day. I was just like, this is the best tackler in college football history, dude.
Will was watching young Abdul Carter highlights of wreaking havoc inside Jordan Hare Stadium. Is that right? 3 years ago? Was that game 3 years ago, by the way?
Yeah.
It was Penn State, Auburn, and Jordan Hare?
I will say this.
I was there. Left in the middle of the third quarter.
One of the best highlights, if you ever want to watch, Jadeveon Clowney's high school highlights. It's just fun. You watch a guy who just dominates high school football for one season. It's a lot of fun to watch that.
Well, Ralph, a lot of us don't like to watch bullying and we don't like to promote it, but that's what that is essentially. But hey, it is indeed special. All right, let's talk a little college football, SEC here on a Monday night. If you're just tuning in, make sure you like the stream. Make sure you head over to the YouTube platform and subscribe to the channel there where you can know we go live just about every single night through college football season. It's going to be a lot of fun. Tomorrow night, yes, Tech fans, I'm doing my full prediction and then full preview prediction of the ACC slate on Wednesday night, which we've already kind of talked about our show schedule for next week. We're going to have just some wild takes, like just off the wall takes. Like how crazy can you get? I wouldn't say Will's is like nuts, but it's an interesting dilemma that's not completely out of the realm of possibility.
This audience will hate it, but
they will. And that's what you're here for. You Will, I don't know if you're new here, but I don't know if you realize that one of your tweets resurfaced recently. And we appreciate those fans, man. I mean, it is dedication to be that obsessed. It is. And I appreciate that.
I mean, look, some things have come up here this summer that we've discussed on the show, and I've had to say it. Never wrong, just early. So just wait. I'm on a roll where my takes, they were just early.
Okay, let's talk a little SEC football. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Lock it in. Subscribe to the channel here as well. All right, let's start with this. Obviously, a lot of people outside of the Southeastern Conference looked in and said, hey, that's kind of a down year for them in 2025. 3 playoff teams, Tennessee, Texas, and Georgia. You had South Carolina, Alabama, and Ole Miss. I'll say kind of those fringe, maybe, I guess we're talking about this, guys, like maybe the 13 through 17 seeds, essentially, of what you would have had in the playoff last year. But as we kind of kick this off, I'll go back to you here on this, Will. The SEC, we discussed this back in January. Was it really a down year? I'll offer this. I think that when you talk about having a down year and can the SEC bounce back in 2025, what does that realistically look like, right? You haven't won a national title in 2 years, so it's, I guess, trendy to pile on. That is the ultimate loser take, to be able to just wait on someone's downfall to try to, come after them. But this is a conference that is so, I don't want to use the word diluted, but so stacked to the point of where I think you're going to see more teams in that 6-6 and 8-4 range than maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, where you really saw more teams in that 8-4 to 9-3 range. And I know that's not a massive difference, but for optics purposes, when you get to bowl games, you look at records. For the casual observer, when they see a team conference has a bunch of 7-5 teams, they're like, well, they're not any good. And so, what does a bounce back year look like? And I know you're not necessarily in the camp of thinking they have to bounce back, but what does it look like to you?
Yeah, I mean, what is the SEC bouncing back from? You had 3 teams make the college football playoff. Your SEC champion was, I think if their starting quarterback doesn't get injured, might very well have won the national championship game. I remember they went into the semifinal with their backup quarterback, with a brand new quarterback. Talking about Georgia, the schedule that they had, Kirby Smart famously on the podium after the SEC championship game, calling out Greg Sankey for sending his team on the road. To me, that was, if not the best team in the country, at worst, one of the top 3 in the country. I think a Georgia-Ohio State title game would have been a ton of fun. But I don't know what the SEC is bouncing back from. They had 3 teams in. You could have made an argument for the SEC to have 6 teams in. You look at, if you don't follow the SEC and you look at the schedules and you think, oh, well, they're not any good because they're all 6-6, 7-5, whatever. You're not looking enough at the schedules. I mean, a 6-6 team in the SEC, it could turn around and be 9-3 It'll be next year because the conference opponents will change. But I mean, the margins are so slim in the SEC because you're talking about national title contenders. You could say there's probably 8 teams in the SEC that think that they're good enough to win the national title in 2025. And I don't think there's another conference that there's 8 teams that you think could win the national title.
You said there, and I want to give you an opportunity to clarify because it's going to be picked apart. There's 8 teams that think they can win. Do you think there's 8 teams that can win a national title, or do you think it's more inside the building? They feel like they have the tools to go win it.
I think it's a little bit of a combination of both because you have to have the talent. I mean, just you can use that old 24/7 metric, the blue chip ratio. I'm blanking now. I think it's 6 or 7 SEC teams have over a 50% blue chip ratio heading into 2025. So the talent's there. Okay, maybe I'll rephrase it. There's 8 teams that are talented enough in the SEC to go win the national championship game. And we're gonna give our title game predictions. It was really difficult for me to pick 2 teams that are gonna make the SEC championship game because the schedules are very balanced. There's a lot of teams that have really tough road games at key points of the year where these games line up for them. Like I say, the margins are so slim in the SEC. It's really hard to predict.
Ralph, your thoughts? Will kind of mentioned it here, and you can piggyback off this. You can take it wherever you want. I kind of sit in the camp with Will. I don't know what you're bouncing back from. Maybe is it just simply being in the national title game and representing the conference there, or is it actually holding up the trophy? Is that the metric that the SEC has set for so long that now you have to live up to?
I think it's kind of weird to say that they need a bounce back. I mean, you had 5 teams over 10 wins last year, 10 or more wins last year. You had 3 teams in the playoffs. I mean, I'm in agreement with Will. You really don't need a bounce. There's no bounce back. It's just that you're used to seeing Alabama at the top of the leaderboard, and now you don't see it from one year. It's like, was the SEC not good this year? No, they're just a lot more evened out. Obviously, the additions of Texas and Oklahoma last year brought in some, different game plays and different games, obviously. And the SEC championship game was one of the best games last year to watch. And what we saw last year with the SEC overall, you saw a lot of teams that started getting good toward the end of the season, and some teams that fall off at the end of the season. I think Texas A&M midway through the season, we thought we were one of the best teams, and they were almost a lot for the SEC championship game. And the loss to Auburn in the year just really looked bad for them. Ole Miss having lost against Kentucky early in the year, and then go to Florida, get blown out. And it's just some of those games like that. Just makes the SEC look bad, but overall, it shows you this conference is getting more well-rounded, evened out, and it's starting to look better. I think you have a more complete conference, and it's not so top-heavy anymore. I mean, when you can look around the country, there's a lot of top-heavy conferences. But I can tell you right now, those mid-tier teams in those conferences could not compete with a mid to lower tier team in the SEC right now. So going into 2025, I don't see the bounce back. I see there's just more SEC dominance coming.
Maybe the phrase we use here is maybe dominance in depth, right? Like you just see the true strength of what the conference has where, and look, people are going to poke holes in it. Well, the hypothetical, the SEC wins every single hypothetical game. No, I think it's you really aren't what you say your record is. Like that's not really an indication because records and schedules, like we talked about last week, and conference strength, it's not equally balanced. So, for example, South Carolina finished 9-3 last year, or did they finish 10-2?
9-4.
I don't remember. I can't. 9-4. They lost the bowl games. So they're 9-3 regular season. So hypothetically, there, if you get into a scenario where you think, okay, you take another 9-3 team in another conference, it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm taking South Carolina to win that game on a neutral site because of the games that they won, especially against the ACC champion, and then the games that they obviously they had to go, play and they lost. So to me, in that sense, I do agree with both of you on that. So what does a bounce back year look like for the SEC? I think this is really a case of it being what you said, Ralph, probably hit the nail right on the head, is you're going to have some really good depth. I will say this. I think the bottom of the conference is going to be very, very bad, like regardless of what the conference logo is saying. I'll talk about that here in a second. I think in terms of a metric to be, get back to the national level, and I think a lot of it's a troll job from SEC haters, is just having a team in the national title game, right? Like you haven't won one in 2 years. If one wins this year, then no one really cares in the grand scheme of things when you look back at the larger data point and you have 12, 13, 15 years of dominance where you're either in it or you win it, and you just have 2 years. That looks more like a blip, an exception rather than a new trend. And I think that's kind of where maybe where we're headed. And that's why 2025 is interesting, right? Is this the new norm? Or does the SEC get more in because of depth, but how hard is it to win it? And we talked about this last year, guys. It's really hard. To me, it's harder than ever to go win a national title now because, Will, you mentioned there's maybe 7, 8 teams that think they're built to do it. But we saw you get into those games and you kind of look at your schedule and like who you got to play. And it's like, golly, like you got to go here. And then if you're one of those like round 1 teams, you got to go to what's going to be a hostile location in the winter. Then you got to go to a bowl game. You got to go to another one. You got to play a national title. You're playing 3-4 games against top 6 quality programs. That's pretty difficult, especially if you played in a conference where you're playing top 20 level, top 25 level teams for the majority of your season. So interesting stuff there. Interesting stuff. So the SEC bounce back in 2025. What does that even really mean? I don't know. We'll see. All right. Next topic of conversation. We're going to run through here, Ralph. Let's go most surprising team in 2025. Who is a team, and Ralph, you'll kick us off here with this, a team that you just think emerges in 2025. And I know we did an episode about 2 months ago, and we've got a couple of those episodes out of where teams either exceed or they disappoint in terms of their over-under win total, but just a team that you think maybe could surprise some folks in 2025 and not necessarily win it all, but hey, they put up a good showing and stack a pretty good year.
Well, I mean, there's one team I want to say, and it's because of their season last year wasn't as great. It's Alabama. I'm not going to choose them though, because I feel like it's just too easy to say. I'm going to go Florida though. I've been so high on Florida this all season with Lagway coming in. I really like what they said at media days, what Billy Napier had to say. This team is wanting to win. Florida is on the come up this year. This is a season Napier's had a full team that has been guys he's recruited and guys that he's built this team for. Florida has a pretty hard schedule, but there's games I think they can win early in the year and build a pretty strong resume to either win 9 games or if they just fall apart. I have no idea what happened in Gainesville this year, but they're so young, they're so talented, they're so well rounded. They have one of the best offensive linemen in the country with Jake Slaughter, and I really like this roster. I really do, and I think and Bryce, you saw it last year. It's hard to win games in the swamp. Florida brings anyone down there, you're struggling to win. It's a hard game. It's a hard place to play. They have a lot of trust in this team and on this quarterback, especially last year. You saw some glimpses of what the future was for Florida, and I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I am. I'm fully supporting Florida this year, and I think they have a chance to really surprise a lot of folks. I mean, I know we're doing surprising teams, but they can really surprise some teams this year. They got some tough road games for the end of the season that they had at home last year, but don't sleep on the Gators.
Will, what you think?
Fall camp starts this week. I'm starting to drink the Kool-Aid like Joe the pilot. I mean, most surprising. I think that's another hard one to pick in the SEC because expectations are really high and it's a really difficult conference. So it's hard to kind of pick a team that's going to do better than expected. And I think Auburn really does have the best chance of that, partially due to schedule. You get Georgia and Alabama at home. Huge, as it always is, because Auburn always plays well at home. And especially in those games. No voodoo, no dark magic, nothing like that. Just Auburn plays well at home against Georgia and Alabama. But the talent level is finally there.
Sorry, I do it.
For Auburn, where it hasn't been in 4 or 5 years. Fingers crossed the quarterback position's figured out with Jackson Arnold. If not, you got 5-star freshman Deuce Knight behind him. You've got Ashton Daniels, who, was at Stanford, and he struggled, but a guy that has started games at the college level, at Power 4 level. You feel really good about that. You love the wide receiver room. The offensive line finally feels like it's just somewhere where it's competitive, at least in my eyes, because the last 3 or 4 years, the offensive line has just been so bad that I wouldn't even call it competitive. Feel much better about that. Defensively, played a lot of young guys last year. A lot of those guys coming back, more experience. And so that's why I'm thinking Auburn can be the most surprising. Right? I'm not saying they will be, I'm saying they can be. I think it lines up well for Auburn to have a lot of success in 2025.
We just had someone enter the chat who I think is going to like where I'm going with this. My surprise team, and I think a team that has their back against the wall and a program that has their back against the wall here in 2025 is Oklahoma. I think there's valid question about. I saw this on. I saw a clip of it at least. I think it was Brandon Walker on Barstool talked about like why do we expect a former Pac-12 quarterback to come in and a borderline Pac-12 ACC running back to come in and have success in what we deem the hardest conference? What does that say about the conference? But I do think that with here and the kicker against that is the marriage of Arbuckle with Mateer. There's just something about having the OC come along with his quarterback and the continuity that provides, and also the teaching that helps with in terms of the rest of the roster, right? Look, Oklahoma was a disaster last year in terms of health. They could not stay healthy. It was an absolute disaster. Will, we talked about going into last season, we had some question marks about them, and then you add on the injuries, and it was a downright brutal year in Norman.
I think I remember being told we didn't know what we were talking about.
We did, and maybe to a certain extent we were bailed out by the injuries. But I don't think Oklahoma would have been great to begin with. They lost some pieces for sure. I mean, I just think that bringing in a guy like John Mateer, you watch his film, you watch what he does well, and he's a creator. He's a backfield creator, right? If you're going to use the archetype that you can utilize in the new EA college football game, that's what he does. So it is a complete overhaul in terms of what they want to do. I think, Sooner Cowboys says right there, 5 of the 6 injured wide receivers transferred out. I think that, to me, that marriage, along with bringing a guy who at healthy is a top 10 back in the country easily in Jade Knott, bringing Ott in, it gives you a foundation for this offense where it doesn't put a ton of pressure on Mateer. It doesn't put a ton of pressure on the receivers you're going to break into this unit. You've got an experienced back, you've got an experienced play caller, and you have an experienced quarterback who have been in that situation. So I really think that Oklahoma's a good surprise. Now, no one has really said this yet. To what level, maybe, right? I don't think Oklahoma's going to make it to Atlanta. Like, I'll spoil that. I think Oklahoma is going to be good enough that Brent Venables gets another year. And does that look like a 7 to 8 win season? Maybe they go 8-4 and they have a decent conference record, and you start to see some strides of where they can be uber competitive in this tough conference. Out of the teams we discussed, Ralph, I think in terms of upside, Florida probably has the best shot at maybe being that surprise team that goes to Atlanta and competes for a playoff spot. I would rank them personally in terms of how we just did. I'd say it goes Florida, Auburn, Oklahoma. That's just where I sit there. But I think that it's interesting because there's pressure on Venables. They bring in Jim Nagy of the Senior Bowl to be the GM of what they want to do there. So they're serious about kind of how they wanted to be able to look at this. So to me, Oklahoma's that team that could surprise some people. And, I was teetering between Texas A&M and them, but I know all the negatives. I know the drawbacks of why people are not high on Oklahoma this year. I get it. I just think there's maybe something to it, and maybe I'm leaning into some hope that when you have that OC quarterback marriage, that they have relationship history, the good kind, it could pay off pretty well. So, that's kind of where I see it. Most surprising team here in 2025. All right, let's talk a little ugly here. Most disappointing team. We're going to go in the exact opposite order. I've got mine, and it is. Look, I titled the video, by the way, "Is this team going to be the worst team in the SEC?" I think that Kentucky has a pretty good case to be the worst team in the SEC at the end of 2025. We don't need to talk about their quarterback situation. We don't need to talk about in terms of that. I understand the expectations aren't super high in 2025, which might lead to people saying, well, how is it a big disappointment? I think they might be downright awful, like downright terrible at football this year. I don't know what it is. And I see some people talking about Mississippi State in the comments. I don't even think they were disappointing last year. I mean, guys,
What
what's
do you
happening
want from
with
them?
Marvel?
Yeah, what
What's
do you want from
happening-
Mississippi State?
Yeah, what would you
Everything's just
want
been
that? What
rumbled
would you
for the last
want
3 years.
to what would you want that to happen? Nico says, "What do you mean Kentucky always pulls 8 wins when Stoops is about to be fired?" I mean, maybe so, man, but they got Zach Calzada at the quarterback position. They lost,
Auburn
and Gavin,
legend.
you can fact check this for me. Berrien Brown, Dane Keys, I believe they lost him as well to a Big Ten team. Was it Wisconsin or Nebraska? One of the two. And then obviously, Berrien Brown's at LSU now. So to me,
Yeah,
I think Mark Stoops is going to be. I don't know. Maybe that's my hot take for 2025. I think Kentucky's going to be looking for a new head coach. I know the expectation isn't sky high there, but I just think Kentucky's going to be so bad that it is disappointing. Their preseason win total, I think, was like 6.5 or 5.5 or something like that. I think they could be a 3-4 win team. Like, I think it could be that bad in Lexington, a team that prides itself on defense. They lost Deion Walker. I think there's a lot of pieces that they've got to figure out. And maybe they do, but that's my disappointing team. I think it's going to be bad in Lexington this year. So, Will, what's your most disappointing team?
I'm going to take Tennessee. Just and it's hard to take Tennessee here. I think a lot of it is not their own fault. It's not for lack of preparing, not for lack of trying. I think the whole Nico saga in the spring, I think that's a big downgrade. You go from a guy that led you to the playoff to a guy that had coming off a bad year in the Sun Belt. No disrespect to the Sun Belt, but there's a big gap between the Sun Belt and the SEC.
Suck it, Ralph.
That gap is a lot wider than you think, a lot larger than you think it is. Trust me, it's a pretty darn big gap there.
Mm-hmm. But really going with Tennessee for that reason. Don't know what they're going to look like at quarterback. They should be good enough again on defense to win some games, but coming off a year when you made the playoff, you think that you're going to be in that discussion again, especially when you think about all that was coming back for Kentucky or for Tennessee before losing Nico. I don't know. They certainly have a chance to surprise, but I think they're gonna be disappointed. They'll probably still have a solid year looking at their schedule. Probably 7 or 8 wins on that schedule still, maybe even 9. But they're not going to be a playoff team, which is their expectation.
Ralph, where are you going?
Well, I know why you went first, Bryce. That's all I got to say. Because I had Kentucky also. I won't double up, but I completely agree. I'm going to go Missouri. I think the losses they had in the offseason last year to the draft, obviously Luther Burden was the biggest one to me. You bring in Bo Prabula, a quarterback. We just don't know much about the kid. He played back up at Penn State, played in a few, some garbage time and came in for a few package plays. But, and Drinkwitz said to the media days, there's a 3-way quarterback battle. No, there's not. We all know Prabula starting game 1. That's been this guy. He's got the Kansas game back in this season. I feel like that's a game that Missouri can sleep in and lose to Kansas at the beginning of the season. It's just too early this season for them to really understand what they're going on. And then they have a tough schedule because you got Alabama at home, at Auburn, at Vandy, then home against A&M. It's not an easy schedule for them. I'm not high on Missouri this year. I was really high on last year, and I really that was a bad idea. Drew Pine played a lot of snaps for them for some reason.
Don't get me started with Missouri quarterbacks.
I know, Will. I'm sorry to bring that up, but I had to say it.
I don't know what kind of potion they gave. What's his name? I can't even think of his name.
Oh, Brady Cook.
I don't know what kind of potion they gave Brady Cook, but I mean, the fact that he sold out to beat Auburn in 2024 and then sits out against Alabama should tell you all you need to know about Brady Cook and about the Missouri football program.
But I'm going Missouri. I really wanted to go Kentucky because I had it locked down. I said they brought in 26 transfers, but not one of them really replaces a single person they lost. They lost a lot in the portal. They lost a lot of talent in the portal. They brought in Kendrick Long.
They lost a quarterback to Major League Baseball.
That was Missouri. not Kentucky.
Oh.
I'm sorry, but Missouri, yes. Missouri did lose a quarterback to Major League Baseball. It's how the Dodgers today. Congratulations, Sam Horn. But yeah, I'm going Missouri. I just don't know. Last year we were so excited about them because Brady Cook came back, Luther Burden came back, and it was just an absolute horrible year. I mean, go back to the A&M game. I think Drew Pine had to start that game. That was terrible. Or Alabama. It was Alabama. They got beat so bad. It was like 30-0. Just got abused the entire game. That was the most disappointing.
Missouri, they beat everyone they should have, and then they just got destroyed in the hard games, right?
So they lost to A&M by 31, lost to Alabama by 34, lost to South Carolina by 4. But they beat, Mississippi State, beat Arkansas by a touchdown, beat Oklahoma by 7, beat Auburn by 4, beat Vanderbilt in double overtime. I mean, and then they almost lost to Boston College. For a minute, Missouri looked like they were going to be a good team last year. Yeah, Joe, I don't know if I agree with that one, but they were not a great 9-3 team last year. I mean, those 3 games they lost were just they were 10-3 last year. That's insane. They won their bowl game. They beat Wolf's favorite team.
There you go.
Beat Iowa.
All right. Most disappointing teams. I've got Kentucky. Will took Tennessee, and Ralph took Missouri. Interesting, guys, because none of us went with a team that is expected to compete for a playoff spot and have a disappointing year. What does it say about our picks? We'll know when we do come back here on the Crowded Booth. We appreciate you watching. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, got a little conversation for you on title game picks and where we're going from there.
Your soap is ugh, and your body wash is a synthetic detergent. But you're not a dish. You're a man. Switch to Dr. Squatch Natural Soap for Men. For men who build things. Open pickle jars on the first try. Slay dragons. And let their daughters braid their hair. Men who like to feel good and smell. Titillating. Dr. Squatch takes you places you never thought you'd go. Naked.
Hey, make sure you check out our friends over at All Natural BS, the official bug spray of the Crowded Booth. All natural bug spray that really works. It's chemical free. It's it's great stuff. Just got some in the mail. Been using it around the house. We had to do some yard work today. Put it on. It was fantastic, and it's safe to use around children, pets, dogs, whatever you got. Not that a pet and a dog are different things, but if it's Ralph's dog, it definitely is. TCB15. Make sure you use that code there as well to get yourself a nice little discount, 15% off on your order today. Check out our friends over at All Natural BS. Bug spray that really, really works. Ralph, sorry to shout out your dog there. It is. Unfortunately, there, Dr. Bob, you cannot use my coupon code to get a discount on it. And Dr. Bob, if you went to the Walmart, I think you went to, I'm sorry.
I don't have a dog.
Well, you did.
Well, that was 8 years ago.
Yeah. All right. It is time.
Anyways,
I digress. It is time. Title game picks. Who's going to Atlanta? Who's Will going to be watching? And what are we going to be talking about as one of the top 4 seeds in the college football playoff? Who wants to go first on this one? Who's feeling a little provocative about what their picks right now? Who's fired up? Will just got married.
That's the word you provocative?
I don't like
That's not the word I would use. Nico's wanting some hot picks. I'll give him some hot picks for the SEC title game.
All right. Who's going to Atlanta, Will?
Auburn, Florida.
No. LSU. I think LSU. I think LSU is going to be really good. They've got, there's a lot of talk around some folks that we talk to about Garrett Nussmeier. Some people call him the statue. But if you keep the statue upright, especially Garrett Nussmeier, I think he'll be really good. We talked about it before. We're kind of doing our predictions. If Garrett Nussmeier cannot try to play so much hero ball, I think, just be more point guard, take what the defense gives him. I think a lot of times he tried to do too much last year. You're looking at a playoff team. you lose week 1 at Clemson. That's not going to keep you from making the playoff.
Yeah.
Because you look at the rest of your schedule, if they, run the SEC or lose a game in the SEC, they go play at Alabama. That's going to look good to the committee. They play at Oklahoma. If they win that, that's going to be a good look to the committee. Texas A&M should be highly ranked. They go to Ole Miss, should be highly ranked. So LSU, the other one, the team is going to play LSU, I think is going to be the winner of, I don't care what to call it now. It's always going to be to me the Red River Shootout. Texas and Oklahoma, and I'm going to take Oklahoma.
Ooh.
I think it's going to be LSU, Oklahoma. I think we'll see them play each other 2 weeks in a row.
Remember last time they met each other in Atlanta?
LSU and Oklahoma?
2019.
Jay Jettis had 4
2019?
touchdowns.
Yes.
Yeah.
What a year.
2019. I really like LSU. Sounds like I might be the only one that really likes LSU, at least based on the comments. But and I'm going to take Oklahoma as well. It'll be tiebreakers, of course. That tiebreaker over Texas is going to be huge for Oklahoma. I look at Oklahoma's schedule, and I hate to do this as an Auburn fan because I think that's a pivotal game for Auburn, a game that Auburn could go into Norman and win. Depending on what Auburn does week 1, will kind of determine that for me. But going on the road in the SEC, Oklahoma goes to South Carolina, to Tennessee, to Alabama. I think they win at least 2 out of those 3, if not all 3. Well, I guess if they're going to the SEC title, they probably need to win all 3. But yeah, I'm thinking LSU and Oklahoma.
LSU and Oklahoma. All right, so I got to ask, why wasn't Oklahoma your most surprised team? Because obviously it's not. I guess you're saying it's not going to surprise you if they make it to Atlanta. That's how confident you feel about them in 2025.
Not if I think that they're gonna do it. I mean, you look at recent history, they kind of own Texas. I mean, that game's right in the middle of the season. That's a pivotal game. And a lot of what you said about Oklahoma, pairing the quarterback and the offensive coordinator, I'm always going to trust Brent Venables with his defense. Last year, I think, was just kind of an anomaly for a lot of what Oklahoma wants to do. Just kind of a bad year all around on both sides of the ball for them. I think they can bounce back. And compared to most surprising, Auburn could be more surprising because people are trying to talk about Auburn, but I realistically, do we really think Auburn's going to be pushing for the SEC title game and pushing for the playoff? As an Auburn fan, I'm even saying no. But I mean, as low as things have been for Auburn, winning 9 games or 8 or 9 games for Auburn would be surprising.
I just want to let people know, when y'all try to come after Will about being an Auburn fan, you're agreeing with him. You're not doing anything to him. When
Auburn's going to be 5-7 again.
If y'all had to sit in the amount of conversations that we have with Will, about April, Will wants the program disbanded. About a month ago, he wanted the program disbanded with the recruiting run. They did not go on.
He wanted the head coach and the AD fired last week.
Yeah.
So
clean house.
If you want to go,
well, it still remains to be seen. It's not August 1st yet.
I will tell you right now.
It's not August 1st yet.
If you want to tweet at Will and say the Leafs are better than Auburn, I can promise you around his response is going to be, yeah, I know. Or yes, always.
Sooner Cowboy says Auburn will be a better team, but if y'all rely on JA to lead the team or in a close game, expect a turnover.
Don't tell him that.
Fumbles, I think, I saw you comment earlier. The fumbles were certainly at probably the worst possible time. But he only threw 3 interceptions last year. 12 touchdowns, 3 interceptions last year. So I mean, I think you can work on fumbles more than you can working on poor decision making and throwing interceptions.
Man, I just changed mine right before I started talking. I haven't pulled in a check from this school in quite a while, but about a month and a half actually. They just stopped sending the checks, which was unfortunate. But they will be sending checks again soon, pretty sure. But My SEC title game matchup is on one side, it's Texas. Here's my thing with Texas. There's a lot of social media buzz. You either love Arch Manning or you hate Arch Manning. You think he's wildly overrated, or do you think he's the second coming of Jesus Christ? And, I think for me, I don't think Arch Manning has to be number one pick material for Texas to win this year. The way that Sark has constructed this team, I'm just going to tell you this right now. They have the best defensive player in the conference in Colin Simmons. That's my take for 2025. That kid, I think he's better than Dylan Stewart. When you watch this kid play, the way he is developed, he is going to be a monster this year with it. They still have some very good depth. They've recruited very well there. They lost some pieces in the back end of the secondary. Guys, they have 4 5-stars there. Like it's 4 former 5-stars there. Like they have the talent. They've got the depth to be able to go do it. I don't think Arch Manning has to be I don't think he has to be even great. I think if he can be a point guard for this offense, they've got enough weapons, and you've got one of the best offensive minds in college football to be able to go to scheme you up and beat teams that you have better talent than. So I think Texas is on one side of the bracket. For me, next week we'll get into playoff picks, and I'll kind of tell you where I think they go in terms of that. The second team, and I want to say this, I don't think there's a clear-cut 2 teams that can make it to Atlanta. You could go with a wild different number of conversations or combinations, I should say. What I do think is that you have some teams that have some serious question marks, that if answered, they're a national title contender. If not answered, they're 7-5, 8-4. So that's why it makes it hard for me. I'll tell you this: I like Georgia. We've always said this. People are trying to say that Gunnar Stockton needs to be this or that. I don't think he has to. Georgia's never been a quarterback-centric offense. They just need a guy who makes good decisions and utilizes playmakers. Georgia's got a good shot to get to Atlanta. That schedule's still obviously, pretty tough the way they just flipped it in there. They've got to host Alabama, Texas. They'll host Ole Miss too, I believe. They've got to go some difficult places, including Mercedes-Benz. So,
whoa.
That'll be a de facto home game. Anyway.
That's a home game.
That's a home game. So it's a $10 million home game. I'll tell you that. So that's what that is. So Georgia, I trust them. I think Georgia's going to be good in 2025. My problem is who's going to be great and get to Atlanta. It comes down to 2 teams for me. It comes down to that November 8th matchup in Tuscaloosa, LSU, Alabama. I'm taking Alabama to go to the SEC title game. Here's why. I think that Ryan Grubb being involved in what they want to do in Tuscaloosa is very important. That is who Kalen DeBoer wanted all along to be his OC. He made the jump to go, obviously, to the NFL. He gets his guy. The second part of this is you still have some legitimate weapons around, whoever you want the quarterback to be. We're just going to call it Simpson right now. And that looks like it'll be the guy, obviously, for the foreseeable future. If Alabama is patient with letting Ty Simpson develop into this role as the starting quarterback, all the tools are there for this team to be in Atlanta at the end of the year. Like every single one of the tools are there. As it is almost every single year, and for a long time it was, for the SEC West, I think November 8th will tell you who goes to the SEC title game. I like what LSU has, Will. You mentioned LSU. For every single strength LSU has, there is a glaring question mark right beside it. And I am in a space of I'll believe it when I see it when it comes to Brian Kelly and LSU. So I think Alabama's defense is very, very good, like really, really good in 2025. I think the offense is pretty good. I've got Alabama and Texas in Atlanta for the SEC title game. That's my 2. So, Ralph, what you got?
Before Ralph goes, I want to say I was talking to an Alabama fan a few days ago. You made a really interesting point, one that I haven't thought about the quarterback position for Alabama. I've been hesitant to kind of crown Ty Simpson as the starter. I've been kind of zeroed in on Austin Mack. Don't be surprised if Keelan Russell ends up winning that job. There was a clip that Alabama put out. I don't think it was Simpson, though. I think it was just Mack and Russell. Russell gets the ball out 2 or 3 times faster than Austin Mack. To me, who doesn't really know what I'm looking at, that means a lot. The quick release. So another young guy, another freshman, but I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being the quarterback for Alabama.
One last thing on Alabama, I think, and I'm not trying to discredit, and I know, like, we talked about a lot of this last year, and I know this is going to strike a chord with Will. I think that they're going to be able to do some things offensively in 2025 they couldn't do last year because of the constrictions that your quarterback placed on you. Now, look, I'm saying that from a vantage point of where I saw this guy torment LSU inside Tiger Stadium for 60 minutes. That worked for them. I think they're going to be able to do some things and utilize the weapons they have that's going to open some things up. That's why I like Alabama in 2025. So, Ralph?
I am going with a game that started on November 2nd, 1895 in Columbus, Georgia.
Oh, God.
Where one team won 30-0. 36, apologies. It is between the two cities is 275 miles via I-20. That's Alabama, Georgia. I think we'll see a rematch in Atlanta this year. I think Georgia's probably had the easiest way to Atlanta, in my opinion. A lot more better home games than some others. But I like this Georgia team. This defense is really good. It's always good under Kirby Smart. Let's just be honest here. They had some pretty good weapons this year. Obviously, the offensive line last year was kind of beat up. Some starters kind of missed some games, and they just couldn't play full games. I believe in Gunnar Stockton to be really good. I like this run game they got. I think Nate Frazier is a dude. When he gets going, he's really good. They brought in some really good transfers though to help out Gunnar Stockton this year, and I think they're going to be used extremely well. And to Alabama, you both hit on the nail. Alabama, honestly, Will, and I agree with that. Keelan Russell. I don't know if they'll start him though, just because I think he's just young. He's a player though, and we will see him play this year a good bit. I feel like in some backup roles if Mac decides not to, decides to leave if he doesn't win the starting role. That's been rumored he'll leave if it doesn't start. But I like Alabama this year. They're so good, dude. Every year, I mean, and people are saying it was an off year last year. I mean, they still won 9 games. I don't care what you say. That's not an off year for anybody. That's DeBoer's first year in the SEC and wins 9 games. Didn't lose at home once. That's not a bad year. That's a great year. I think they bounce back this year, and I say bounce back is they're better. I think they win 11 games, 10 games this year. They're a solid overall team. I really like this. I like Ty Simpson. I just don't know much about him. And that's my only play. I've said it multiple times, people. There's a lot of teams in the SEC that are one person away from winning a lot of games, and that's quarterback play. There's a lot of teams you can put under that list. And weirdly enough, Alabama's one of them. In the past, you think, we knew what Milroe could do. We knew we saw what Tua did, what Bryce Young did. We all knew what they could do. They were the top players in the country. We knew they were going to come in and dominate when they got there, especially when Jalen Hurts, he was probably the only one you didn't really know much about. You had to go that far back to think, Jalen Hurts was a backup going into that USC game behind Blake Barnett, who was the future of that team. So, yeah, I know. That's how far you had to go back to think about a quarterback we did not know at Alabama that was really good. So I like this team. I think DeBoer's got it right. He brought in Grubbs finally. You get a guy who can work with quarterbacks, who's got 3 really talented quarterbacks. And one thing Alabama always has is running backs that are just really, really talented. They got him. And they brought in Isaiah Horton, who I think is a mismatch for most defenses. He's really big. He's really strong. He's a 50-50 ball kind of guy. He's going to win some battles for them this year.
You mentioned this about Georgia, and I saw someone put a comment in there, like they couldn't run the ball last year in the offensive line. It's interesting because the offensive line wasn't great, but they had 3 guys drafted off of it, or 4 guys drafted off that group. It was just kind of a weird hodgepodge. They just couldn't figure it out, and they didn't get that initial push like they did, in years past. If they figure out this run game, buddy, if Georgia figures out the run game, Gunnar Stockton's going to have a field day.
I mean, Nate Frazier
Georgia's going to have to figure out the run game.
Yeah,
Nate Frazier
they're going to have to.
Yards. Almost 700 yards rushing.
Just from an arm talent standpoint, Gunnar Stockton, Ryan Puglisi, it's not the same arm talent that Georgia's had at quarterback, that Kirby Smart has had at quarterback at Georgia. Ever. I mean, you think about it, when he got there, it was Jacob Eason and Jake Fromm, and then Carson Beck, Stetson
JT
Bennett,
Daniels.
Carson Beck. Who?
JT Daniels.
That's
Dwan
right.
Mathis. No, but
Juan Mathis didn't last long.
Yeah. But to your point, if they run the ball and they can complement, I think it's going to be very, very interesting.
Am I going to have to be a DGD?
Go ahead.
Dev says, if Mike Bobo can figure out how to stop eating crayons, then yeah, but maybe pigs can also fly. I've never understood the discourse about Mike Bobo. I mean, nearly every year, his offenses, especially at Georgia, put up over 30 points a game. I don't get it. And he was handcuffed at Auburn. He should have been better at Auburn. He was handcuffed.
This is a pretty good point. Cinder Cowboy says, I think it was
but
more
I
about
think it's
Georgia's
best
skill
we don't get
position
into that.
guys not catching the ball. Yeah, Georgia led the country in drops.
Well,
Noah
let's just say this.
Noah Thomas could be one of the best receivers in the SEC.
Zachariah Branch, Noah Thomas, Micah Bell. I mean, they got some dogs this year.
Oh, yeah.
And then, not to mention, they also brought in Josh McRae, who was an absolute stud of a running back from Illinois. 6'1", 230. That's a guy you don't want to get in front of if he's running full speed. So.
It's a balanced roster. Obviously, you got to play out the year. They could be very good.
Can I put my tinfoil hat on?
Go ahead.
I don't think you know where I'm going with this. If Mike Bobo wasn't in Kirby Smart's wedding, somebody would have made the 35-minute trek.
Oh boy.
To use Gunnar Stockton like Haynes King.
I mean, yeah, that's fair. The Mike Bobo stuff. I mean, it's fans that have been spoiled so much. I'll say this. I get it. I get it in the Mark Richt era, but is Bobo handicapped? I mean, I think it does show how good Todd Monken was to an extent. Like Todd Monken was a very good offensive coordinator, and what he was able to do. So, yeah.
It's not much of a surprise. He's been a really good offensive coordinator in the NFL.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, he just has good players. Well, you're an idiot. All right, title game winners.
So be a good coach to coach good players.
No, Ralph. It only works when I want it to work.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, real quick, who wins the SEC title? Will, go back to you.
LSU.
Ooh.
Very high on LSU.
All right, I'm going Texas. Texas beats Bama in the SEC title.
I'm going
Ralph?
Alabama.
I like it. All three different picks. Will goes LSU.
Listen, man, all this talk about Alabama is going to just be over come November 29th. It's going to end.
I'm glad you're excited for
I'm sick of it.
Today, we got a tweet from Will today that showed some actually excitement for Auburn football. That's why
I don't end on August the 30th. I don't end on that Friday night in Waco.
That'll end when
August
I
29th.
live on stream punch a hole in my desk.
Oh, boy. It'll be great.
That'd be great.
SEC predictions. College football's almost here. We appreciate the fellas for giving their picks. Once again, SEC title games from all of us. Will went with LSU and Oklahoma. I went with Alabama and Texas. Ralph went with Alabama and Georgia. And the title game winners for all of us, Will said LSU. I said Texas. Ralph said Alabama. Texas is the smart money. Florida is the wild card. Speaking of money and speaking of wild cards, we're going to do some things a little bit different this year. If you
don't play for the Cleveland Guardians.
If you're new to the show, this is the sole reason to tune in the show every single week. Best Bets is back. Here's the kicker. There is not money on the line, pride, comfortability, embarrassment on the line.
Comfortability is right for someone in here.
This year, whoever finishes in last, the chat, within reason, gets to pick the punishment.
No, not the chat. I don't trust
chat
anyone in that chat.
With the approval of the other two people, within reason, gets to pick the punishment. Also, we're going to let y'all take in y'all's best bet picks this year. So, Dr. Bob, that spreadsheet's going to get a little bit bigger here in 2025. But hey, it's going to be fun. The chat's going to get to pick the punishment, and within reason, let's keep it PG.
What I go last year, 2-10.
Look, I'm 100% behind this one already. I really am.
Willer's shaving that head. Welcome to Thumb. That's wild. Hey, we appreciate you watching. Make sure you check out our friends over at Dr. Squatch. You can use code Bryce for 15% off your order, or 10% off your order over there, and then TCB15 with our friends over at All Natural Bug Spray, All Natural BS. It's going to be a lot of fun. 24-hour bar challenge. Every shot you take takes an hour off. Dear Lord Jesus.
Oh, I thought that'd be easy.
I was going to say Ralph might be the only person that survives.
Yeah, look, there you go.
Ralph would be out and yeah, that's amazing. That is amazing. Hey, we appreciate you watching, fellas. I'll hit the outro music. We will catch you tomorrow night, 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern, full Georgia Tech preview, and then once again Wednesday night, ACC preview. Where will we have Georgia Tech in the ACC title game, or will Wake Forest get some love? We'll talk about that more
Robbie
on Wednesday night.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The crowded booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.